Okay. So this is exercise 3. We're going to be talking about color, gradient, and texture. So for my example, I'm showing you, I pulled one of Charlie Harper's pictures in as just a reference as an example. And I wanted to show this one specifically because I wanted you to see that even though we're working, he's working in minimal realism, you can see that, he has a lot of graphic shapes and items in here, but he also has a texture and some gradation and other elements within his design. So I think that's what brings a lot of depth to his work is like, yes, they're very shape driven, minimal. He's bringing in a lot of these. I just love the patterns he brings in. He has a polka dot pattern on here. He has a line pattern. But then you can see, he has a real texture like on the eggs down here. There's a nice little texture on the body of the bird. There's a real painterly, gradated texture. Now, mind you, he's painting these, so of course they're going to have those painterly elements. We're using Illustrator, so we don't have the benefit of that kind of a paintbrush. We're going to be bringing our texture in through other ways, and I'm going to show you some ways we can use Illustrator to bring in texture to our designs to give them a little bit more depth and a little bit more interest. So what I've done is I basically just made a basic shape based on this design of the owl. So I've just kind of, as you can see, I've just got the basic shapes here. Nothing is filled in. I'm going to fill it in right now with you. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to I'm using my direct select tool because I just want to grab each shape. And I'm going to bring in the colors. I'm going to take the outlines off as I fill the colors in and grab. Oops, I'm coloring the line. I didn't mean to do that. Keep coloring the line. Get that out. So there we go. I'm going to grab this shape and this shape. Now I know I want these to be the same as the brown. So I'm going to use my eyedropper tool and just grab that. And that way it automatically takes the outline off and it matches the fill of this one. So now it's a very quick way to get that fill in. I'm going to do the little legs. Oops, I don't want them to be outlined. Let's see, what color am I going to make the legs? I think right now I'm going to make them this color. Oh, and you know what I realized? My legs need to come up a little. I want to match the look of Charlie's. So that's how the legs go. Okay. So here's my overall, just filling in the shapes. So here I have the basics before I build in any other elements. So what I want to do now is before I build on my other elements on top, I want to add in my texture into these background elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each shape separately. So right now I'm going to select the body and I'm going to do Command C and then Command F to paste on top. What that does is it gives me a second copy that's pasted directly on top of the first. So I'm now selecting this top shape that's above my original. And what I'm going to do first is add a gradation to it. So I'm going to go over here to the gradation tool. And I'm going to double click the gradation. This is what I want to add here to this design. Oh, undo. There we go. I click on my shape and now I have, this is how all the gradations come in. They just come in black to white. There's two toggles and over here you can see this is the gradation slider on the right. And you can see underneath that and then you can see on top there's a midpoint. If I move the midpoint, it adjusts the gradation. And I'm guessing at this point, all of you have used the gradation tool at some point. So a couple things to think about, like I want to have one side, this side here, have no fill. So I'm going to choose no fill, select it, and choose no fill. I want to go color swatch. There we go. Why isn't it letting me collect none? Oh, I just do opacity 0. That's what I'll do. Opacity 0, there's my none. And then on this side, I want to choose one of my colors from my color palette. So I'm going to go over here and choose one of the browns, the darker browns. Now you can see this is going left to right. I want my dark to be at the bottom and go up to light. So I need to change the orientation of this. So you can change it this way by the angle of it. By clicking in here, you can say 90. Oh, that brings my dark to the top. I actually want my dark on the bottom. So I'm going to go minus 90. And so that's now giving me what I want, which is the dark at the bottom, the invisible at the top.
I'm gonna make a new one for Valerie.
I have someone's microphone on. I'm not sure. I'm going to mute you. There you go. So here we have minus 90. This is giving you your toggle. You also can choose, like this is a linear grid gradation. You can choose a radial gradation, right? And or a linear. And for what I'm doing, what I need, I want to have a linear, but depending on your shape, a radial might work better for you. So those are options you can choose right here in the window. I go back to my linear. So choose the type of gradation you want. Choose the amount of the gradation, how you want that gradation to perform by moving this toggle here in the middle that allows you to adjust the gradation's behavior. Okay, I'm going to have mine right about there. Okay, so once I have the gradation where I want it, that's great. I'm going to open up the appearance window. And you go under window, appearance. So you want to have the appearance window. This is what it looks like. And now you can see, here is my fill right here with my gradation. And you can see it has an opacity default. You can see the gradation showing here. What I want to do now is I want to click the effects button, which is down here. And it says add a new effect. It's that FX button at the bottom. Once you click that, you can see these are all the effects I can do. And I'm selecting my fill. So the key point here is we're selecting the fill. So we're affecting just the fill of this gradation that we've just made. So I'm going to go down here to texture and grain. Now you'll see that this grain window has popped up. And for me, it's popped up really big. It's at 100%. If I look in the lower left corner here, I can make it go smaller. So if I want to look at it smaller, I can make it go bigger in that lower left-hand corner. Adjust the size depending on what you want to see. So now that I can see my gradation, again, I'm using a transparent color. So that's why I'm seeing the checkerboard pattern. I can play with the intensity of the grain by these toggles over here on the right. I can play with the contrast of my grain by these toggles over here. And then I can choose my grain type, which is I have soft. I can look at sprinkles. That's what that looks like. Clumped, contrasty, enlarged, stippled. You can just kind of go through stripes, you know, and kind of see what one is the right look for your design or that you want. I'm going to go with soft for mine. And I'm going to lower the intensity for mine, maybe down here to 38. I'm going to keep my contrast a little low as well. So whenever you get it to where you want it, and this is something you can play with for quite a while and experiment, try lots of things. Once you have what you want, go ahead and say, okay. Okay, so now that texture I'm going to pull it off so you can see it, is applied to my design, my shape. Still, and it's the color behind it is flat. So now it's important that the grain is directly underneath your fill. If for any reason the grain isn't in your fill, if this effect, it kind of came outside your fill, let's say it came outside or something outside the fill, you want to move it just by clicking and dragging into the fill. We want to make sure it's part of the fill. And the reason is we are going to play with the opacity. We're going to click on the opacity. And so we can adjust how much of this we want. We can adjust the opacity of our grain texture now on our background color. And we can adjust how we want it to apply. And this is where you really can get some interesting effects. You can try darkening, multiply, color burn, lightening, screen. So you can see all the different effects I can get just by the way I apply the grain texture to and how it interacts with the color I have behind it. And it can be quite different, right? Depending on which ones we choose. So I'm going to go to lighten. Let's see, what one do I want? Screen. Actually, I want it to go darker, so I'm going to go darken, and then I can play with the opacity of it. Like, do I want it? There's the full opacity, 100%. I don't want it quite that intense, so I'm going to go maybe down to 50%. And then once I have it where I want it, I'm good to go. I can go back in here and change it at any time because it's still an active, it's changeable. So now I have my texture the way I want it. So I've gotten a little texture in here, and now I would be ready to plan and start putting my patterning or any other element I want on top of it. And so I might decide I want to do something up here to this shape too. So same steps I would do. So I'm going to go through it one more time. So in this one, this shape, it's by itself. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy, Command C, Command F to put a shape in front. So now I have a copy in front. I'm going to go ahead to my gradation tool, and I'm going to use a gradation on here. And so maybe on this one, I want to use a radial. Maybe I want to use the radial. One of the things I can do is I can adjust where that radial goes. I can move it. So let's say I want to bring it up to the top of the head. And then maybe I want to make it go wider so it fills the whole shape. I can pull out the shape of the radial. And let's say I do want to, flip it. I don't want the clear on the outside. I want it on the, I want to switch the orientation. So I'm going to go here and say 180. Nope, not 180. Let's see. How do I switch this? I can switch it. I think maybe I just have to change the colors here. I think I'd have to just go brown on this side. Oh, brown, but 100%, hold on, 100% opacity on this side and 0 on this side. There. So then I can play with hope I need a different color, not brown. Won't see anything if it's brown. Let's change it to this color. Here we go. Now you can see. And I can adjust, how much that I want and where I want it. Of course, I can, oops. Hold on, undo. Okay, remember you can undo like up to 50 times or more in Illustrator. So if you make a mistake, like I just accidentally popped off of it, you can do that. I'm going to go back onto the gradient. If I click off, I can still go in here and adjust. So there's where I want it So let's say I'm happy with that. That's where I want my radial. And now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I have this where I want it. I'm going to go up to Window, Appearance. Okay, and here's my fill. And I'm going to select my, oh, you know what? I didn't finish it. There we go. I'm going to select my fill. You have to click out of the gradation. So now I see my fill. I can then go to my effects window, texture, grain. There it is. Again, I can adjust it if I want to see it a little more clearly. I can now apply the intensity of it. Try, what do I want for this one? Maybe I want a different one. Maybe I want this one more enlarged. Say okay once I have it the way I want it. So there it is. And so now I can go again into that opacity and I can choose how much I want it to show. So I might go down to 50%. And then do I want it to lighten? I'm going to use just the lighten feature. So it's much more subtle. And again, I could even go a little less if I want. I just want it to be a very subtle, so it makes the head feel a little rounder, but very subtle. Okay, so that's where I have it. So now I'm ready to start building my other elements on top. Okay, any questions?